Continue now with our lead story, reaction to the grand jury decision in Ferguson, Missouri. Join us from Washington, Charles Krauthammer. All right, you heard the ladies, both prosecuted cases, both experienced grand jury people. They say there was nothing wrong with the grand jury, that this was the way it came down. The evidence pointed to self-defense. What say you?
Look, I have no reason to doubt that. I do believe that anybody who says it was rigged or there was some kind of prejudice on the part of the grand jury is really smearing people in an unwarranted way. After all, the grand jury was chosen long before the incident even happened. It wasn't as if it was chosen specifically for this case. But there is something unusual about the way it was presented. Normally, a prosecutor is trying to get an indictment, so he presents a narrative, he presents a case, he offers the evidence in a way that will return an indictment, and that's how you get the result. In this case, the feeling I have, and you get it from the body language of the prosecutor and what he said, the feeling I have is that he thought there was never enough evidence to bring an indictment. However, he did not want to act unilaterally because he knew it's a very sensitive case.
Sure.
And that if one man had decided that, it would look like the fix is in.
But
what he did do, the responsible thing, I thought in that case, he said to the jury, I'll let you decide. Here's all the evidence, unadulterated, unfiltered. You decide. And they agreed with what I think he was originally thinking. Namely, there was not enough evidence.
Okay. A couple of things. His father was killed by a black man. His father was a police officer. So that has been used by the racial hustlers to say that he, is prejudiced against blacks. Number two, one of the flaws in our justice system, I believe, on the prosecutorial side, is that even if the prosecutor in some cases doesn't think that the case can hold, he still goes ahead. Still goes ahead with the grand jury, still goes ahead and say, you got to indict this guy, and, fervently lobbies for an indictment, even if the prosecutor goes, it's a flimsy case. I know you've heard it. I've heard it. They've said it to me. This case isn't, I don't want to do this case, and it's no good, but still my duty is to go in. I'm not so sure that that is the duty of a prosecutor when you have a situation where there is a confrontation and there is physical evidence that can clarify it. Am I wrong?
Look, I think the duty of a prosecutor, the duty of anyone sworn to uphold the law, is to do what he thinks, to act in accordance with what he thinks actually happened.
Yeah, justice.
And if your father was involved in something, we don't judge people by the family history in this country. It's a ridiculous argument. The fact is that the prosecutor obviously thought there was not enough evidence, but in a case this sensitive, he wanted to let it be done by 12 impartial people, right, which is not a bad way to do it. However, I can understand why the demonstrators or the opposition would say, this is a very unusual way to do it, and we don't like the way the process worked in this case.
Now, let's get personal here. Benjamin Crump is the attorney for the Brown family. You just saw the stepfather in that family embarrass himself. Awful situation, and that obviously taints that man for sure. But Crump went on today with an impassioned, sincere, this is not justice. Black people can't get justice in this country. All black youth is at risk. And he really believes it, Charles. And as I said, nothing you can say or I can say is going to dissuade his belief. When you have that attitude, isn't the debate fruitless?
Look, sincerity is a virtue, but it isn't evidence of veracity. That doesn't mean he's right. And he may not be somebody who can be convinced, but there are a lot of other people out there who have questions about the process who I think would be open to an explanation of what exactly happened. And, to extrapolate and say, therefore, no black person gets justice in this country, I think is completely wrong. Even the president said that last night. We've made a lot of progress in the country. This is not evidence of that whatsoever. There's a very difficult case where a jury of impartial people with no reason whatsoever to go one way or the other decided there simply wasn't enough evidence. And you got to remember, in this country, we don't revenge people through the family. That was abolished when you institute law 3,000 years ago. It's the people against a person who kills. It's not the family against. We don't have vendettas in the country. It is the community acting through the grand jury, through a prosecutor, through a system that will bring charges. You can understand the feelings of the family, but they don't rule. That's the whole essence of law, is that it's impartial. Justice is blind.
Real quick answer on this.
If you don't have that, you have nothing.
Do you believe that in this country, black people don't get the same justice as white people?
I believe that you can point to cases where black people, generally speaking, because of their lower economic status, have less access to high-powered lawyers. I think you're more likely to get off if you have a lot of money, a lot of good lawyers. You get a white-collar crime, a violent crime, and there are ways that you have advantages if you are of higher socioeconomic status.
All right, Charles, thank you. We appreciate it. Directly ahead, are there two different justice systems, as I mentioned to Charles, one for whites and the other for people of color? We'll discuss it. Then Karl Rove on how President Obama and Attorney General Holder are handling the situation in Ferguson. Factor is coming right back.